Hello everybody, my name's Stephen Elaine and today I'm going to be talking to you about the conservation of amphibians in the United Kingdom. So I'm involved with a number of projects around the UK looking at amphibians and their conservation, but today I'm going to be focusing on my efforts in Cambridgeshire as the chairman of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Amphibian and Reptile Group. Here are some quick facts before we jump into the rest of the presentation. The UK has 7 native amphibian species, 4 newrons and 3 newts. Our 4 newrons are 2 toads and 2 frogs. We have 3 species of national conservation concern, and all of these have legal protection. There are also a number of introduced amphibians as well, although most of these are localised. They may, however, threaten our native species due to competition or as a disease vector. The UK has such a small number of native amphibians due to its geology. During the last glacial maximum, most of the country was under ice, and that land that was available would have been a harsh tundra, meaning that only those species that were most hardy could survive and colonise the UK after the ice melted and the English Channel cut us off from the rest of Europe. I'll tell you a little bit about each of our species before we move on to conservation. This will include their habitats, their distribution, and just some key identifying features. The common frog is by far the most easily distinguished species of widespread amphibian found within the UK. Most residents will be familiar with seeing frogs born as a child or in tadpoles in the classroom. They can grow to 11 centimeters in length, with males being smaller than females, and vary in colour from light brown to dark green. Females may even turn red during the breeding season. They may or may not be spotted, but all individuals have a dark face mask that extends past the eardrum with stripes on the legs. Unusual colour variations can occur, and they have been observed in the wild. Unlike toads, frogs have smooth skin and a more pointed snout with an oval horizontal pupil. Males may be heard calling at breeding ponds, mostly at night, although under the right conditions, such as heavy rainfall, they will also call in the day as well. Their call is a deep rasping sound that often forms a chorus as multiple males all call at once. Males can be told apart from females by the presence of nuptial pads on the first 2 digits. Breeding takes place in early spring, and as an explosive breeder, clumps of spawn often appear in suitable bodies of water, seemingly overnight. Females lay 1 clump of spawn, which takes up to 2 weeks to develop before tadpoles hatch. This may take longer with colder weather conditions. Metamorphs are approximately 1.5 centimeters in length and take 2 to 3 years to reach sexual maturity. Common frogs are the most widespread of any amphibian species in the UK, often being found in garden ponds, nature reserves, etc. The common toad is the largest species of toad found in the UK, with adults growing up to 15 centimeters in length with warty skin and prominent parotoid glands behind the head. They tend to be fairly uniformly coloured, usually a dark brown or copper colour with a marbled belly. Like the common frog, they too are explosive breeders but lay their spawn in strands as opposed to clumps. Male toads can be told apart from females due to their smaller size and presence of nuptial pads. Again, the breeding season occurs in early spring, with peak toad activity timed by the phases of the moon. Males are rarely heard calling apart from when they encounter another male which has accidentally grabbed them thinking that they indeed are female. In this case, males give off a high-pitched squeak, which is their signal that they too are male. The operational sex ratio in toads is heavily biased towards males so that females are sought after, sometimes with breeding turning into mating bull. This is where females are enveloped by multiple males all struggling to mate with her at once, and sometimes this leads in females drowning. Spawn will take 2 to 3 weeks to develop, at which point the tadpoles hatch, and newly metamorphosed toads are about 10 millimeters in length and leave their natal ponds en masse, usually following heavy rainfall or the full moon. Natterjack toads are the smallest toad species found in Britain. Unlike the common toad, which is widespread throughout England, Scotland and Wales, natterjacks are very restricted. They are found almost exclusively confined to coastal sand dune systems and sandy heaths. Natterjack toads are found on about 60 sites in Britain and occur on a small number of sites in southwest Ireland. The natterjack used to be quite common on the heaths of Surrey and Hampshire, but sadly now only 1 or 2 colonies remain. Reintroduction programs have now started to restore the range of this animal. Apart from being smaller than the common toad, natterjack toads also have a yellow dorsal stripe and shorter legs. They're also more green in colour. The natterjack gets its common name from the loud rasping call made by the males in spring. During the breeding season, April to July, males call from the edge of a pond at night in an effort to attract a mate. Each female natterjack toad lays eggs as 2 spawn strings, with the eggs often forming a single row in each string. The tadpoles are small and black. Common toads lay similar spawn, but each string usually has 2 rows of eggs. The tadpoles develop quickly and the yellow dorsal stripe is clearly visible in juvenile natterjack toadlets. Threatened by habitat loss, the natterjack toad has declined in the last century. As a result, the natterjack toad is strictly protected by British and European law, which makes it an offence to kill, injure, capture or disturb them, damage or destroy their habitat, or possess them or sell them or trade them in any way. This also applies to larval stages and eggs. The pool frog is restricted to 2 sites in England, having been reintroduced since 2005. The pool frog was once seen as an alien, but evidence now points to them being native. Pool frogs are extremely variable in colour, although those reintroduced to the UK are predominantly brown with a yellow dorsal stripe. Pool frogs are about the same size as common frogs, typically up to 6 cm in length, with females being slightly larger than males. During the breeding season, the males have a large call which is generated by a pair of vocal sacs on each side of the mouth, a feature which is absent from the common frog. Pool frogs breed much later in the year than common frogs, with breeding coinciding with the onset of warm nights in May and June. The clumps of spawn are typically smaller than those of common frogs too. Pool frogs are known to bask in the sunshine. The pool frog has full protection under UK law. It is an offence to kill, injure, capture or disturb them, and to damage or destroy pool frog breeding or resting habitat. It is also illegal to sell or trade pool frogs. This law applies to all life stages. The smooth newt is a small and widespread species that is often mistaken for the larger great crested newt, as the male also possesses a crest. Newts grow to 11 cm in length, with males being larger than females. They occur on land as readily as they do in ponds, often found in damp habitats or underneath paving slabs. Males are darker and more spotty, have a striped face mask, and a smooth wavy crest that extends all the way to the tip of the tail. Males also have an orange and blue streak at the base of the tail. Females, in contrast, are a uniform brown or olive on top, although terrestrial phased males may also have this appearance. The bellies often have an orange stripe with a white border and black spots. The spots are larger in males than females. Breeding takes place in the spring, and females lay up to 300 eggs in a similar manner to great crested newts, wrapping them up individually in vegetation. The eggs hatch in 3 weeks, and the larvae live at the bottom of ponds where they feed on aquatic invertebrates. Newly metamorphosed newts are 3 cm in length, with males taking 2 to 3 years to reach sexual maturity and females longer. Smooth newts are fairly widespread in the UK, with most individuals recorded from the lowlands, especially on alkaline soils. Palmate newt look superficially like the smooth newt, but they prefer more acidic soils, typically found with upland sites. They are smaller than the smooth newts, only growing to about 9.5 cm in length, with males being smaller than females. Males may be distinguished by the black and palmated hind feet in the breeding season, as well as a filament at the end of the tail, although this is fragile and may not always be present. Females look identical to female smooth newts, although they can be identified by the presence of a pink skin tone chin colour without any speckles. The belly of both sexes is usually quite plain compared to smooth newts, with a single yellow stripe down the middle with some small speckles. Palmate newts are often found in garden ponds and are absent from most of eastern England. Finally, we get to the great crested newt, which is the largest of the 3 native newt species in the UK, growing up to 18 cm in length, including the tail, with females being longer than males. Great crested newts are generally black in colour with white flecks on the flanks. Their bellies are either yellow or orange in colour with black spots. The combination of spots is unique to each individual and can be used to recognise newts within the population. This has previously been employed in a number of capture mark recapture studies. In the breeding season, males can be distinguished from females by the presence of a white flash on their tail and the presence of a crest, giving this species its name. Newts also have a number of small warts on their skin, giving them an alternate name of the warty newt. As with our other native amphibian species, breeding takes place in the spring, and males attract females with a combination of his crest and pheromones. He deposits a spermatophore on the floor of a pond and leads the female over it. If she accepts, she uses it to fertilize her 300 or so eggs and lays them individually by wrapping them up in aquatic vegetation. Eggs develop for up to 3 weeks, with the larvae sticking to open water. They metamorphose after 4 months, at which time they resemble small females. It takes between 2 to 3 years to reach sexual maturity, with the process taking longer in females. Due to enormous declines in range and abundance in the last century, the great crested newt is strictly protected by British and European law, which makes it an offence to kill, injure, capture or disturb them, damage or destroy their habitat, and to possess, sell or trade. This law refers to all great crested newt life stages, including eggs. So now that we've run through all of the species found in the UK, it's now to look at their conservation. There are a number of conservation organisations in the UK, but only a handful of these specialise in the conservation of reptiles and amphibians. These are FrogLife, the Amphibian Reptile Conservation Trust, and the Amphibian Reptile Groups UK. All 3 play different complementary roles in the protection and ongoing conservation of our native amphibians. One of the key aspects of conservation is monitoring. You can't protect a species if you don't know where it is, and you can't evaluate your actions if you don't follow them up with surveys. Here we see a matter of common frog spawn with over 250 clumps. Whilst we miss the initial breeding itself, we can at least deduce from this that there are over 150 females in the population. As the production of eggs is so metabolically costly, females don't breed every year, and so the presence and volume of spawn tends to follow a cycle. Once you've identified where a species is, it's important to keep it there. You can achieve this through habitat management, and so in this photo you can see some of my volunteers removing a dead tree from the edge of a pond. At this site we've also removed a lot of other trees that were shading the pond in the hope that if we did it would increase the breeding success of toads. We still need to gather the data on this to prove how effective it was. Other interventions can involve multiple stakeholders. Here we see a photo of a toad ladder being installed into a roadside gully pot. We need a local council permission as well as that from the local highways agency to trial this in Cambridge. We're hoping to install them in more sites soon, but again we lack the proper data to see whether or not they're effective. Gully pots act as a pitfall trap, and so any migrating amphibians or small mammals that find themselves in the road can easily fall in. The ladders offer these trapped animals a route out without altering the function of the drain. The toad ladders we use were specifically designed by the British Herbological Society. Common toads have declined 68% in the UK for the past 30 years. This is for a number of reasons, including habitat loss and fragmentation. Roads also act as another threat, direct mortality with toads being run over by cars. Toads undertake their annual migration through busy roads back to their breeding ponds. Toad patrols can help to reduce this danger, as can providing signage to make road users aware that toads are there. Toad patrollers up and down the country battle the elements to ensure the toads on their patch are safe. Typically, toads are only active when nighttime temperatures are above 5 degrees Celsius, but this doesn't always stop them. Outreach is a key part of conservation of reptiles and amphibians in the UK, aiming to educate the next generation of conservationists. Whilst most outreach is aimed at children of school age, it is also important to target their parents. They're the ones with the power and influence to create change in their family life and to benefit amphibians at the local and national scale. The event photographed here was the annual Cambridge Natural History Society Conversazioni, a coming together of all of the local volunteer conservation organisations. Engaging with different audiences is key. Many of the attendees here are aware of the need and value of conserving various taxa, but not amphibians. It's important we work together to spread the word and help create the biggest impact possible with the tools available. Training is another element of conservation. I often rely on volunteers to conduct surveys in the local area for me and to feedback that information. I can't be in two places at once, and this helps to drastically increase the information that can be gathered, especially over a larger area. With volunteer surveyors, you want to know that their identification skills are reliable, so workshops are one way to achieve this. It's important to cover the theories such as the methods and identification in the classroom, and then reinforce this in the field, as is the case here with this reptile monitoring workshop. Finally, I'd just like to revisit the topic of non-native species. Across the globe, introduced species are leading to declines in native species due to factors such as predation, competition, and the spread of disease. One of the most well-known non-native amphibian species in the UK is the midwife toad. They aren't particularly widespread and are mostly found in urban gardens where they have either escaped or been introduced. It is their method of reproduction that gives them their fame and name. Males wrap the eggs produced by the female in amplexus around their legs and hide somewhere dark and moist to incubate the eggs. When they're ready to hatch, it then takes them to a pond where the tadpoles are released. We were worried that the introduced populations may act as a disease vector to our native amphibians. The populations we've so far tested are negative, but more widespread screening is needed. The origins of midwife toads are also disputed, so I'm currently coordinating a national project to investigate this. So far, we've collected DNA from about half of the known populations and hope to continue to do so in the future. We've got some exciting preliminary results and will hopefully have a publication ready by the end of the year. Watch this space. Thank you all for listening. I'd like to take this time to thank my colleagues and volunteers that have helped to protect and monitor the amphibians and reptiles of Cambridgeshire alongside me. I hope you enjoyed this personal and whistle-stop tour of my experiences of amphibian conservation in the UK. If you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me by email or through Twitter.